Hare Vaishnavis.
Esha Dharma Britam Shesto.
Esha Dharma Britam Shesto.
Lokam Dharme Nurvartayan.
Lokam Dharme Nurvartayan.
Gopta Cha Dharma Setunam.
Gopta Cha Dharma Setunam.
Shestatat Paripantinam.
Shastatat Paripantinam. Esha Dharma Britam Shresto.
Lokam Dharme Nuvartayan.
Lokam Dharme Nuvartayan.
Gopta Cha Dharma Setunam.
Gopta Cha Dharma Setunam.
Shastatat Paripantinam.
Shastatat Paripantinam.
So how many need a translation of the Serbo Croatian?
Please.
Well, 10. Maybe they can sit in one corner then. Who's the translator today?
I'll be.
His Holiness Sachinandan Swami Maharaj ki
Jai! Jai!
Ki
Jai!
The sleepiness. Very nice home.
Night before last, I only had 2 hours of sleep. So they put my head to the west for all night. I was having a dream. Maybe you should see which way your head is facing. East or south?
East, I am east or south. Yeah, I'm very particular with it. Yes.
I'm always very particular, but last night I left. What language do you speak?
But I'm sit here, but ja bih htjela njega čut. Okay, vidi ga svakim 10
I will look at you from here. You can see.
Gledati odavde, gledati. Okay, thank you.
We're all ready now? Any other translations needed? French, German, Hungarian? Slovenian? This King Maharaj Prithu is the best! He's the best! Amongst those who are following religious principles. As such, he will engage everyone in the pursuit of religious principles and give those principles all protection. He will also be a great chastiser to the irreligious and the atheistic. So here, just word for word, short form, it's saying here, Sreshta, the best, Dharmi Anuvartaya, those who follow the religious principles, Gopta, the protector, Dharma Setu Nam, the principles of religion, Sasta, Sasta, the chastiser, taught by the continent of those who are against the religious principles. So, report, the duty of the king or the head of government is described very nicely in this verse. It is the duty of the governmental head to see that people strictly follow a religious life. A king should also be strict in chastising the atheists. In other words, an atheistic or godless government should never be supported by a king or governmental head, a chief. That is to test a good government. In the name of secular government, the king or governmental head remains neutral and allows people to engage in all sorts of religious activities. In such a state, people cannot be happy, despite all economic development. However, in this age of Kali, there are no pious kings. Instead, rogues and thieves are elected to head the government. But how can the people be happy without religion and God consciousness? The rogues exact taxes from the citizens for their own sense enjoyment. In the future, the people will be so much harassed that according to Srimad Bhagavatam, they will flee from their homes and country and take shelter in the forest. However, in Kali Yuga, democratic government can be captured by Krishna conscious people. If this can be done. the general populace can be made very happy. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta Swami translation and purport to the Srimad Bhagavatam 4th canto, 16th chapter, 4th verse, 4:16:4, symmetrical. Spoken in Zagreb, Croatia, in the Gornitai temple, on the 25th of January 2008, Christabdo 521, Gorabdo, the holy year of our Lord Chaitanya 521. In the presence of His Holiness Sachinanda Maharaj, many assembled devotees from the Balkans. Very interesting verse. In Mahabharata, I think it's mentioned about Panchashil. It's 5 principles, like that should be there to have a world peace. One is that, I don't remember all the 5 actually, but India had a meeting about 1960s when they were being attacked by China. They were promoting amongst Asia this Panchashil as an ancient principle, but it's very practical. So one of the principles is that you should respect the territorial division of each of the countries and not attack each other. And the other one is that everybody should follow some religion. They should believe in God. So atheism is actually banned. Unfortunately, India didn't adopt Panchashil in their constitution. But Indonesia was so impressed by it that Indonesia adopted it. Now it's in the law in Indonesia that you have to believe in God. You cannot be a citizen without believing in God. You'll be exiled. Panchashil. But that one, the other 3, there's 5 principles. So there, you have freedom of religion. Anybody can believe in any religion, that doesn't matter. Any bona fide religion. There's Hindus, there's Christians, there's Buddhists, and there's majority, of course, is Muslim. But for a Muslim country, they have freedom of religion is very good. In fact, they're very proud of it. Because when I went there for one World Hindu Federation meeting, which was inaugurated by that time, whoever was the vice president, and he, Suharto, or his father, one after him, and he was speaking about Panchashil. He was very much into this. It's like he mentioned about 10 times in his speech. But the only thing I could understand, Panchashil. But they translated for us. But that's because they're a multi-religion country and they want to have peace amongst all the religions. But they believe in religion. Should be religion. Should be some everyone should worship. That kind of principle, Prabhupada is espousing there. That it is part of the government's duty to see that people follow some religion. And because without any religion, the people won't be happy. Despite some sense gratification, people won't be happy. they get frustrated. That's an interesting. The GBCs in North America in the 1980s had a meeting in Detroit. What was their goals? Like strategic management for the country. So then they had a goal that they wanted to become a recognized minority religion. I mean, in the first step. Because sometimes we're not, people consider us not as like a real religion, but something, a sect or something. To be recognized as a minority religion, have that many followers, that politicians would respect you because you have a vote bank, you have followers. I don't know how much they followed that. That is interesting. We're not talking here about almost a democratic government can be captured by Krishna conscious people. I mean, the democracy means that people have a vote. They can vote whoever they want. So if you have enough devotees or some devotee who's enough of a leadership ability, then you could theoretically, potentially get elected. I have a disciple who was elected to the parliament of Bolivia. And because of that, he was able to influence a lot of people and prove we got recognized as a religion in the country and many good things happened. Just because of one member of parliament. And in India, I have an aspiring disciple who's he's head of a political party in one state for the youth wing. Look at that. Just trying to think about it. But there are a few. When I was talking with what's my godbrother's name from America who ran for political office?
Bhagavatam.
Yeah, Bhagavatam. So he was running for House of Representatives. It's the two houses or something. And on a Krishna conscious platform. He didn't hide that he was a Krishna conscious devotee. He called it the In God We Trust Party. As in American dollars, it says In God We Trust. The oldest, the old dollars. So, then Prabhupada, he didn't like it that he didn't want the temples to campaign for him. It wasn't like temples should remain neutral, they have to be apolitical. Right now we're facing the trouble because we're being accused in Bengal and Mayapur that we are supporting one of the political parties. But we don't actually publicly support. Our members may vote for that party. One of the pro-Hindu parties been supporting us, I would say. But they're saying that, so we are saying that we don't officially, we have people from all the parties that practice Krishna consciousness, not a problem. But it can be an issue. So Prabhupada didn't want us to practice, the temple should be involved in the political campaign. They have to be neutral. But the devotees, the grihastas, they can. So he had a team of grihastas. And he got 5,000 votes. For the first time, it's pretty good. And, considering that this guy knows they didn't have congregations. So here Prabhupada just hinting a little bit you have a Krishna conscious leadership. Maybe in Croatia, in the future, you have a Krishna conscious leadership. You can make the population very happy. They're trying for that, like in, there are some countries where probably they'll get ahead before Croatia or Serbia or these countries. Like Mauritius, 60% of the population is Hindu. They usually elect a Hindu prime minister. But so far the prime ministers have been supportive, but they're not very Krishna conscious. They're Hindus. Also in Guyana, we have about 50-50, I think, the former African and the Hindus. And those Prabhupada told those countries that they should have a Krishna conscious situation. In Manipur, the people are basically Vaishnavas, but they're not all vegetarians. On the street, all the ladies wear tilak. Their religion is Vaishnava, not Hindu. I mean, per se, not generally, but they call themselves Vaishnavas. Since the king, 500 years ago, was initiated by a disciple of Arjun Das Thakur. So at that time it was a totally Krishna conscious kingdom. And their cultural shows are this Rasa Leela. Although they're very much Chakti oriented, most of the people are called Singh. Like Sudamodar Maharaj was told on Singh. Singh means like a lion. So they are, in fact, the Japanese, when they were going through Asia, they conquered, Indochina, conquered Malaysia, Singapore, conquered Myanmar, Burma, and they were just attacking India, and they got up as far as Manipur, and that was it. The Manipuris, like Nepalis, came in the sense that they're great warriors. So, when the Japanese go to see their forefathers' graves in Manipur, they worship their forefathers, Shinto religion. So, but today, of course, people, they feel their freedom of religion and also freedom to be an atheist. So this Panchashila, even in America, that people regularly go to court and say that in God we trust should be taken out of the money. So far they failed. And but sometimes they wish to have prayers in the schools or a moment of silence so everybody could pray. And the atheists also got a court order stopping that government should not interfere with people's religion, because in America they have a separation of government and religion. It's two separate things. In fact, if you're a religion there, you don't have to turn in any tax returns. You're like transcendental to the government, as long as you follow the civic laws. So, interesting, because they were being persecuted when they started by people left England and Europe because of religious persecution and settled in America. So that everybody was religious, but there were all these different religions that were not allowed to practice freely in Europe. The Quakers, different. Other than the Church of England, which at that time was an English colony, so there were many others that came to America. So unfortunately, they don't follow Panchashila. Their atheism is also allowed. But 99 to 98% of people in America believe in God, according to some poll. I don't know, what's the population, what's the percentage in this part of the world? Most of the people believe in God.
Fake it.
Huh?
Fake.
Not really.
Well, at least, there's a sloka in, that says, Mukhe Veda Mane Dharma Nahi Gani. People, even in the Vedic, it says, by mouth they accept the Vedas, but practically they don't do anything. Dharma Nahi Gani. They accept it, there's God, there's religion, but practice, very weak. So that's something new. So that majority of people, they are followed like that. They accept religion, they accept God, but they don't practice much. When I was in Barnaul, in Siberia, they have a festival there. I usually go to the festival. I think this year I missed it like here because of the timing. They have what they call Altai region, that's a Siberian mountain range. And they have an Altai festival. So this Altai region is a region of Russia. So the lady who's the governmental head of the religious affairs of that region, she is very much favorable to everybody in this religion. She's but she likes the Hare Krishnas, especially that the Vishnu Tattva, he's the local ISKCON head there. They're trying to find some government building to get him at a low price. She likes me too. She told me, stay here, I'll get you Russian citizenship. Anyway, Indians are laughing. So then she was telling us something interesting. She said they did a study. Which religion is the most active? How many followers of different religions who are active? So the religion there is like in Serbia is the Orthodox. That's the majority religion. So they said what they'll do is the biggest festival of the year, they'll count how many people go to church or go to that religion's temple or whatever. So for the Orthodox, I think the biggest festival is Easter. That's called Easter. Where for maybe the others, Christmas is bigger, but Easter is their big day. So they found that in the whole city of Barnaul, which has 600,000 people, 10,000 people went to Easter. So from that they could understand that 10,000 people are active in their religion, of that religion. And that's the biggest day. Everybody's supposed to go to church, 10,000 out of 600,000. Although maybe 500,000 are saying that we believe we're Orthodox, something, but actually who goes to church, 10,000. And this is the Hare Krishna, 1,000 went to Janmashtami. So they said we're 10% of the active religious practitioners in their city. Although we're only 1,000 who went, but they're using the same statistic. So then they're finding, okay, so we're 10%. So that's a good minority, no? In India, there's 16% Muslims, and they control that. The last president of India was a Muslim, and they usually have a very powerful vote bank. Sometimes they got the democracy, there's two parties. They don't get the majority. In the democracy, you have the parliamentary system. You have to have the majority of the parliamentary members. So sometimes say there's 200 members. One party has 90, other party has 90, 20 is by the third party.
Coalition.
So they make coalition government. So then according to their coalition, sometimes they get to be prime minister, or they get to be some big minister, because both you get that party as the coalition, they offer all kinds of big ministries and power. That happens in this part of the world too?
Yeah.
Just did. So like that, you may be a minority, but have a lot of power. If you're just happen to be in this kind of situation. So anyway. Just say visit. Sometimes the Greens, I think in Germany, they're not a very big party, but they also, one of the governments, they were there because using that Polish Shakti. So like that, it can happen that it can be a small government, a small party, but still have a lot of power. And from that you get bigger and bigger. People like you. That's interesting. Probably you're mentioning a little hint. You know, in Mayapur, we do vote. I tell, because we're in the country, we're in a village, we have 1,000 residents in our community. So I tell everyone who's an Indian that they should all vote. Because whoever we vote for usually becomes the village leader. There's a union of 11 villages. And they have like 11,000 people, so we have 1,000 voters. It's a big number. They always come and ask us for their vote. If you don't vote, it's like you're dead, you don't exist. If you vote, then they know that you're there. In a democracy, they have how many votes? Especially whenever it's before the elections, when they're going to the campaign, go and meet all the leaders and say, we'll support you. But we want your support. And get some promises from them. Yes! They all promise everything to everybody before the election. Maybe after, say, we voted for you, whoever won. Maybe you get some permit for Rath Yatra or something. I don't know what you want, some land for the temple. It's interesting, but the main thing here is how the head of government really keeps that people don't do irreligious things. That's what the point is here. He protects the religious principles. So there's a history in the Padma Puran about Jayapataka Maharaj. We have also in Bhagavatam Jayapataka Maharaj, but there it focuses more on his relation with his wife, his queen. A lot about that. But it goes into another details in Padma Puran that the Jayapataka Maharaj, his guru was a Vaishnava. And his guru asked him that let's establish Krishna conscious program throughout the country. So he didn't do it by some law. So there's also a story about one king in Bengal from a couple hundred years ago, not Yatis like Satyuga. But there was a king and he made an order, everyone had to chant Hare Krishna. At night, every night, 6 or sunset, they all had to gather and chant Hare Krishna in his kingdom. So once he went in a secret, incognito, dressed like an ordinary guy, and he's going around. Some low-life people were sitting around playing cards or something, I don't know what they do, playing some kind of game. And then someone said, come on, it's getting to be that time. We gotta go and do our Hare Krishna chant. And then that's just this Narasimha Maharaj's trip, That's his thing. We all gotta do it because he wants it. And he's hearing them, So that, unfortunately, if you just make a law that everybody should love God, it's not going to work. It doesn't work that way. So this king found out, you can tell people to chant or get together, but they may resent it, or they may not really develop it. So Jayapataka Maharaj, he didn't use that system, he didn't just make a law. But he sent out and financed preachers, Brahmins, to go around and preach and train everyone to be Krishna conscious. voluntarily. So people, everybody started worshipping Krishna and everyone started chanting Hare Krishna in Satya Yuga. But Hare Krishna is so powerful, Kali Yuga you can be Krishna conscious. What is Satya Yuga? When people were chanting, they were completely freed of sins. You know, the Satya Yuga, the previous yugas, if you thought about something bad, you get a karmic reaction. But in Kali Yuga, you have to do something bad. So don't do anything bad. Yamaraj is watching. Krishna is watching too. When it's not a thought, drive it out of your mind. No, I won't do that. So such a Yati Maharaj made the whole planet God conscious. Everyone was chanting. So as a result, people didn't grow old. No sins. They're always staying young. Then their children grew up. They didn't get old either. Their grandchildren grew up. They don't not get old, also nobody died. Everybody wants this eternal life, long life. But he showed that by Krishna consciousness you can achieve a very long life. So then Indra was making a tour of his universe, his three mundos, his three worlds. And he went down to Yamalok. And the Yamadutas, they're like a fireman when there's no fire. They're all sitting around, you know. Nobody that's going to hell, no torturing. All the hells are like empty. Maybe a few old customers from before. See, they were pretty much without any action. So they started to heckle Indra. What kind of universe are you running here? Nobody goes to hell. What are we doing here? What's the point of giving us a position as a torturer in hell? And nobody coming here, we can't do anything, you know. Normally we hear the sweet sound of screams, you know. Now nothing, it's so quiet here. What are we supposed to do? So like that, your universal government is a failure. Somehow, Indra, his ego got ticked off by this. He said, you see this, Yati Maharaj, he's completely going against, he's just overruling you and ruling the whole universal system you got made up here. So then, the Yati Maharaj, Indra, he got really angry with him. He said, yeah, this guy Yati is too wicked here, it's all you can make everybody live forever. Nobody's going to hell.
Okay.
Looks like there's something in my son. Huh? So he called Cupid. And he said, Cupid, come deep. I want you to go throw some arrows at the Yati Maharaj, make him fall down. Yati Maharaj was very much in love with his wife, that's in our Bhagavatam. He was Krishna conscious, plus well fixed in his grihastha life, regulated sex life. So it's not like some yogi who's trying to be celibate, you know, sitting in some forest alone. You send some beautiful apsara and Yati, he was married to an apsara, basically, married to a heavenly damsel. She was very beautiful and she was very happy in every respect, materially, spiritually. So Kamadev was saying, not an easy job. It shows how one can, you see, there's a certain amount of protection if you're well situated in your Grihastha ashram. In the Priyavrata Maharaj section of the Bhagavatam, it also states that when they're trying to convince Priyavrata to leave Brahmachari and get into Grihastha, which I'm not particularly promoting here, but that his father wanted him to be the king, so he had a motive. But Indra, Brahma and Swayambhuva Manu were encouraging him that you'll be protected. You see, if you practice Krishna consciousness as a Grihastha, then you'll be like in a fortress from Maya. So, that was the kind of situation Yati Maharaj had. He was like in a fortress. He says, I was seeing this morning so many families, nice children. That's the point of we want all the ashrams to work successfully. The brahmacharis have a particular mentality, we sannyasis we have a particular mentality. Grihasthas have a totally different mentality in terms of how they're associating with their families. So they're allowed to be, they should be attached to their wife, should be attached to the husband. That's their protection, but not so much that they forget about Krishna. Like Prabhupada was asked, Malati, when she had little Saraswati, said, why do you want to give Krishna consciousness to your child? Something like that. Why do you take care of your child? She says, it's my duty. Prabhupada said, no. If you love your child, because you love your child, you want to give the best thing to your child. And the best thing is Krishna consciousness. There also, I was just somewhere recently where I observed this Annaprasana and some of these different samskaras. Actually, Bhakti-tirtha Maharaj, we were discussing how the samskaras are important, and he said that in some of his communities, they use these samskaras as big social events. They have, it's a good excuse to get dressed up in your fancy saris and your good dhotis and have a feast for everyone. In India, Annaprasana, people, mostly the boys come and say, please put some grain in my child's mouth, Annaprasana. But there's actually a fire yagya. And then 5 times you have to put with chanting mantras, hitting the 5 air, the lords over the 5 pranas. Om pranaya nama swaha, it's a swaha like offering to the fire of digestion. Upana is it called udanaya, all the 5 pranas. Samanaya, udanaya, samanaya, apanaya. Like that. So they use that, the little ceremony takes about half hour, and then they have a big feast and a party, festival, a little bit. Grihastha-oriented festival. Prabhupada said everything with childbirth for us, with families, it's all auspicious. Even if someone doesn't have children, but the husband and wife, sometimes they use that, they work together to help spread Krishna consciousness, to work as a team. Actually, when I was a new bhakta in Montreal, I was 19 years old and my temple president was a German, Hansaluta, and his wife Himavati. So Himavati was on a campaign to get all the brahmacharis married. She was heavy preaching to me. If you want to go back to Godhead, you got to be married. I said, I just have to back to 19, I'm thinking about it right now. It wasn't on my priority list at that moment. I was just trying to become Krishna conscious. But she said, no. Look at how we come here. We're the temple president. We're preaching like this woman. Look at that. At that time, there was a period when all the young couples, they went out and opened temples. It was then later, there was something that happens to couples, like babies. It made it a little more complicated to be the temple president. But at that period, all young, they didn't have children yet, so it was working. Then I went to see Srila Prabhupada and I asked him him about these continuing I cannot be Krishna conscious unless I'm married. What should I do? I'm just 19, I'm not thinking, I don't know yet what I should do. Just do the devotee. The Prabhupada said you should wait till normally people wait till they're 25. Then in consultation with the Guru, between 25 and 30 we'll decide. So for now you have I got what they call, when sometimes the football match rains out and they put a postponement, they give you a rain check. They call it rain ticket, means you can come back the next time free. Because the game didn't finish. They didn't have those in America for some sports. Now they have, of course, this covered goals. I had my rain check. Okay, so 25, I was free. So then she came up, Prabhupada said, wait till 25, then we'll decide. Like that, there were many couples at that time who were going out and preaching. In fact, I would say majority of our temple presidents are probably grihastas. There's a few brahmacharis, a few ladies. But majority probably are grihastas. But it's to deal with so many different things. So like that. Of course, when I was 21, Prabhupada gave me sannyas, that finished the whole issue. Probably the youngest sannyasi. Now I'm the oldest senior sannyasi. That's no, because I was number 11. When I got initiated, I was number 11. The first 10 before me are not sannyasi anymore. And they're not in this kind. So it's risky. Being a sannyasi, a bit risky. Especially in the West. I'm in India most of the time, so it's a little safer. But there was in 1970. Others like Trivikram Maharaj is pretty old sannyas. But they're after 71, like a few years after. What year you were?
88, I think.
88, you're after. But whichever way one wants to go, I mean, they can choose to be a brahmachari or stay in that ashram later, or they choose to be grihastha. The idea is grihastha life also very important, that it be done in the proper way. Somewhere Prabhupada said in 8th canto we have to fight against Maya from the position where we feel stronger. For some people they may feel stronger just to be alone. Or they may feel stronger that to be together. Whichever way we are, that when we have to then fight against all these illusions of Maya. Unfortunately, we don't have a pious king like Pitu Maharaj who's there to support us. There's enough Maya in the material world. Sometime, are any of you ever tested by Maya? Once in a while. How many times per day? Per hour? Per minute? Constant fight with the mind. Eventually the mind becomes a little more favorable and attacks. But anytime she gets a chance, she'll attack. First to the senses, to the mind. So we want to focus ourselves to be Krishna conscious. Actually, Prabhupada mentioned most of Lord Chaitanya's followers were grihastas. And when he took sannyas and he was in Jagannath Puri, there was a number of sannyasis there. There was only one or two brahmacharis that were very prominent, like Sukha brahmachari. But most of everybody, Srivas Thakur was grihasta. Most of the devotees, Panchatattva at one point or another, I think everybody was a grihasta, but Prabhupada mentioned, I don't know much about Gadadhar being a grihasta, but Nityananda, but Prabhupada once mentioned in the class that the Panchatattva, everybody was a grihasta. Only I don't know, I haven't read. But there was the custom in those days to marry everybody very young. Maybe when he was just a student. So for us, there's also a lot of grihastas in this communities here. We need to be Krishna conscious, support each other, work as a team. Build up a good relationship. Don't say things to each other that, in fact, for all devotees, we shouldn't say things that hurt the other devotees. We should try to build up a closer relationship, especially husbands and wives. Once I was flying in Europe and I opened the Financial Times. I don't know why, so it just glanced through, and there was one article by a famous marriage counselor. I said, okay, I'll read it anyway because I have so many disciples that have problems. And the whole article was that criticism amongst couples should be constructive. Don't say destructive things, constructive. Nanda Prabhupada always told us constructive criticism in Krishna consciousness. It's destructive to the relationship. Like if somebody says, you know, you're always late, I hate you, I don't love you, or things like that. You're attacking your relationship. You just say, you know, you should try to be on time, don't be late, this is important. Okay, that's constructive. Like you're not attacking your relationship. But those are pretty important things. That's, even in our GBC meetings one year, we had I think Nuttama had us all do an exercise. Go up to some other GBC and tell them two nice things. Tell them one nice thing, then a criticism, constructive criticism, and another nice thing. Even a constructive criticism should be sandwiched between two sweet things. It was very interesting. After someone came out, maybe they don't like the way you chant your japas, I don't know, whatever they're. But at first they say, you know, you're a very dynamic preacher, or you're very good at this or that, something nice. Then they'd say their constructive criticism, and again say something nice at the end. So that you didn't feel bad, even though you were just criticized. So they use some of these are techniques that different management gurus teach. So somehow these are being promoted in ISKCON also. Well, that's something that Lord Chaitanya also said in Shikshastika, because he said that amanena manadena, give respect and don't expect respect. So, but sometimes you may have to give some advice also. So if you appreciate someone, then give the advice. Then it doesn't hurt you so. You don't take it if the person doesn't like you. They're just saying, you know, sometimes there are people that they're just out to get you, no matter what, you know. There's no nice things, just nasty things. But if someone says something nice, okay, maybe it's like at least kind of a balanced view. So in our personal relationships and our dealings as a community, we want to also try to encourage everybody to be Krishna conscious. We don't have a king like Vitumara. We have to do it ourselves. All of you have to encourage your brothers, your god brothers, god sisters, god cousin brothers and cousin sisters and everyone. So we got to be expert in how we deal. I know like in the West, like in India, everybody knows eat with your right hand. That's like Indian custom. But like in the West, people don't know. So sometimes there's a new devotee, and they're eating with the left hand, and then some temple commander type come, "Hey, what are you doing? You're not to eat with the left hand! You and liar!" Then they're completely shocked, you know. What's the difference? Left hand, right hand. I'm a left handed. What's the difference? Don't explain that. They just shout at them, you know. This is crazy religion. What's wrong with left hand, right hand? That explained the whole background. So you gotta, you know, instead of being like heavy with, especially new people, sometimes bhaktas, they get completely blasted out for some thing, you know, they're not innocent, they don't know. So how to present the things in a more tactful way. Because we're not we can make a law, okay, everybody does this, and if you don't, you know, you're going to be in jail. You know, that was, he's the Pandit, he had that power. So we just have to do it by being sweet and nice and convincing to our friends and our other spiritual companions. So please try to help everyone to be Krishna conscious, have nice Krishna conscious families, and those who are brahmacharis. Try to encourage each other also in your ashram. Like this you can try to get as many devotees back to Godhead and as many of the public to become devotees. And maybe it'll inspire some. Actually, one of there's some sitting Prime Minister somewhere. I think he was in New Zealand or something. Forget now. Maybe it's in Slovenia. Somebody was a vegetarian in Slovenia.
The president even, no?
Yeah,
President. He was a vegetarian. He's still the president?
No, we had election. He didn't want to go again for the president. So
he was this vegetarian. You know, there's some nice people. In America, if the president invited him to a vegetarian meal, then all the what do you call these people who lobbyists? The lobbyists who are who put the pressure on the politicians to support their cause. They're called lobbyists. They go and lobby. They go and promote their like promoters. And they did a huge pressure. The President of the United States, if he eats a vegetarian meal, it's a very bad sign. It will hamper our cow slaughter business. They can't even eat a vegetarian meal. It's a one-day banquet, you know. So we can combine with all the vegetarians and have one vegetarian day in the country where everybody tries to be vegetarian. Actually, the Christian, I don't know, some of the Christians, like Catholics, used to be almost vegetarian during Lent. Some would eat fish, but they wouldn't eat any meat for 40 days. And going to the Mardi Gras festival in, this is called Fat Tuesday, the Ash Wednesday starts the 40 days until the Easter. So the day before they have a big festival. In South America they call it Carnival. And here they call Mardi Gras, it's French. 600,000 people go on the streets, it's a real wild bash. And we're part of a parade and we get everybody to chant Hare Krishna, because they're in a very good mood and they raise their hands and chant. So it's unique to see Americans and a lot of tourists chanting Hare Krishna. So every 3 years I go. But the idea is that they're having this big festival because historically, hundreds of years ago, the day after, from Ash Wednesday, everybody's no drinking, no meat eating, heavy Lent tapasya. Almost, I won't say like Ramzan, but because there they do everything at night, but not during the day. This was 40 days, nothing. Maybe I heard sometimes they take fish. The fish were considered not so bad. So there's this, was almost, at least for some time, people were a little bit vegetarian, or almost. And just we can try to unite people. Hey, thank you very much. Nice to be here again. Since we're going to have darshans, I have to go in a few hours. Who wants to speak to me before I go? Any questions? Any comment, Maharaj? Yeah. Did you hear okay in the back there? The translation was all right? Let's give a big high ball to the translator. And to the listeners.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj, thank you very much for this class. I would like to ask a question which I'm often asked by devotees in the Grihastha ashram.
Where's the pin?
A pin.
Igloo.
So the question is like, there are actually two questions. Let us see if you like these questions to answer in this forum. What if a Mataji, a woman, is married to a man who's nice but who's not yet a practicing devotee? They have a child, and the man is attached to his wife, and therefore it is very sad if the fourth regulative principle is insisted upon by his wife. So what should his wife now do? The man wants one thing, physical contact. The wife wants to be initiated and know this rule, no illicit sex. But if she would say no, to the desires of her husband, the marriage is in grave danger. There is a child, and divorce is something which sometimes happens because of these things. So the question is, can this woman, who is 10 years, let us say, who's really a good devotee, chanting 16 rounds, going even out on book distribution, everything, can she sometimes, in order to save the marriage to her husband who's not there, submit to the desires of her husband? And still be initiated. Yeah.
That's question 1 or 2.
This is the question number 1.
Is there 2? Connected? Same thing?
Connected, yes. Now, in ISKCON many marriages have divorced. I heard 75% was a statistic.
I don't think so. I heard 50, but I don't know.
Maybe 50. That's every second marriage. And maybe for married couples who have entered the ashram because they were a little desirous of the opposite gender, the standard of no illicit sex is a little bit too high, and therefore there is tension because they can't follow this. So often Grihasthas come to me and say, we read the GBC resolution on this question, but it seems very impractical for young, passionate people who to enter a celibate grihastha ashram, more or less celibate grihastha ashram. So they ask what is about what is about a more mature handling of no illicit sex. That's the question. So first is a question half-half, where the husband is not, he's nice, cultured, there's a child, the woman is
vegetarian, supportive, do your Krishna consciousness, no objection.
yeah, but
Give me my
something. These are questions I believe they are very much you know that these questions also.
So I thought the GBC resolution answered this to some extent. The GBC resolution cited a letter from Prabhupada, where Prabhupada said that this principle is to be more like a goal. Yeah, and there shouldn't be like depressed or discouraged if you're not able to fully follow it, but you should try to come up to this level. But it's not the end of the day if you are not able to fully come up to that. The idea is I try to present it. If you can practice just for having children, it's karma free, it's devotional service. But if you're not able to, there's two other aspects. One is that Prabhupada said that if in some purport that being a grihastha brahmachari, by practicing to having regulated relation, that the vital fluids of the body are produced in enough quantity that if they had relation once in a month, it wouldn't deplete them physically to be able to understand spiritual things. If somebody's totally out of regulation and just having very frequently relation, then physically and mentally it drains their intelligence. Called as urdareta, that ojas is produced in the body, that ojas can go to the brain and get higher intelligence, or if it's it can be used to produce sperm and these other reproductive fluids. So that was the other thing, is that even if someone is a grihastha and they're having relation once a month, ideally for children, then if it's for children, then it's devotional service. If it's not for children, at least it's under some regulation, and it's preserving to a large extent their ability to understand spiritual things without draining them out excessively. So I kind of got like steps. One is completely following, which is devotional service, and then one is regulated, which is not so depleting on one. But I was also in the room once with Prabhupada. We had a unique case where some devotee, or some devotee had gone out and was visiting prostitutes in Mayapur. He got caught. So they brought the devotee before Prabhupada and asked one of the co-directors, president, I was in the room. And then Prabhupada said, why are you going to prostitute? You're a married man. And he said, well, I can only have relation with my wife for children. But I don't want any more children, and I can't, I have this desire, so therefore I went out to a prostitute. And Prabhupada was like scratching his head, what a strange logic. And then he said, but you see, as a married man, it's not sinful to have a relation with your wife. It's not sinful. He said, literally said, it is not sinful. But to go to prostitutes is sinful. The main so I see that way. One is that our highest standard is our pure devotional service, like the yogi level. The other thing is, but to have relation, it's not a sinful thing amongst the couple. But if they have too much, maybe a spiritual obstacle, but it's not a sinful thing. Or maybe not very sinful, I don't know, but I probably use the word, it's not sinful. I don't know, Bhagavatam Swami will agree with me perfectly, and I debated this in the GBC also, that being the Minister of Congregational Development, obviously this is not a new question for me, this is something that we face every day. So we're trying to do is just get people to be more responsible and once also Prabhupada married 2 girl disciples to 2 non-devotee vegetarian nice men. Couldn't find a husband for them. And Prabhupada was asked about their non-devotees. He said, women can be Krishna conscious under any condition. Don't tell me how, but you must have some. It didn't say men, it said women can be Krishna conscious. So you must have some special shakti. So to keep a marriage together, I consider these valid reasons. I don't consider that the wife, to keep a marriage together, or husband, has to satisfy the basic desires of his partner, than his spouse, then it's a reasonable cause. Also, like if somebody had say there was a young couple, maybe they're 35 years old, 32 or something, and the wife had, they didn't have a child, but then the wife had, say, cancer of the feminine parts, and then they have to take out everything, hysterectomy or whatever they call it, they take out because it was cancer, and they had no choice according to their medical opinion. But they're not, so she can't have children anymore, but so they're not also, they're too young to be totally celibate. And we don't allow polygamy in Islam. So what's the point? What's the choice? So then encourage them just to regulate. There are some gurus who they're not so liberal maybe, but because of the way that Prabhupada make it as a goal, that what happened with this, somehow keep the marriage together, or visit prostitutes, that's like a really illicit sex. There was a case I had where someone would do self-abuse. They didn't go to prostitutes, but they thought it was also sinful to have, and so they're doing self-abuse. The Prabhupada said that that is 4 times more detrimental than having a normal sexual act. 4 times more excretion or whatever. So it's more detrimental. So they encourage that. Try to work out something with your spouse and get yourself regulated, but don't do this thing. So a lot of different weird things come up to me. It's hard to know. So I'm trying to be very practical. And then usually after some years, when they get in their 40s, and gradually, there's a certain risk factor that if you're able to follow strictly and do everything as devotional service, even if you died at that moment, you go back to God. Maybe there's a little bit of there's some risk factor that if someone's not doing the devotional service standard and they're having some extra relations, it's not a big sinful thing, but they're attached to the material world, maybe more attachment. So there's a little bit of a risk at that time if you were to leave your body, will you go back to Godhead or take birth again? That's the factor. To keep the marriage together, to gradually to get through that. Of course, Prabhupada once said that even if you're 70% Krishna conscious, you can still get back to Krishna. Whether that fits within the other things that happen. So to be very, maybe I'm being very technical today, but when you're actually discussing with people. I also felt really bad once that I was too strict with someone and it discouraged them very much in their spiritual life. So it was a kind of a shock for them. So, like we don't want to be niyam agraha, Rupa Goswami says, where you just push a rule, even doesn't have any more good effect, or to be too loose that you don't follow any rules. We're trying to be yogis, trying to control our senses, but different people have different levels that they're on. So how to get them from that level to the next level, get them to the highest level eventually. Whether someone, it's up to each guru whether how much the mercy they want to give, whether they'll accept someone who's on a particular level or not. But I have a kind of a line pretend to be above that, but it's not so etched in stone. It's not right at the top, it's not at the bottom, it's somewhere upper part. They're a little more liberal, but people are like half and half, because it's not really in their control fully. As I'm a sannyasi, I don't want to get into the gory details. I don't ask for any graphic descriptions of anything. Just basic principles of what's going on. Categorically, we can discuss.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Gadadhar.
I have one question connected with this one.
This is your mother?
Yes.
She's saying that you're going to take her to India to get something.
Yeah, we're planning to go. And you said how... actually, one question is connected to this first one. I'll ask this first. Some years ago, one mature lady told me that it is a shame for our movement what is the percentage of the divorce rate in our society. And you mentioned how this system of pushing the law is not effective actually, but at the same time we are also missing in our society, in our community, some kind of, I would say, council of all the devotees who would give at least some social pressure for the devotees not to divorce. But at the present moment I see that when I speak about this problem, because some couples have approached me and my wife, there are some cases when devotees are asking help. Very often it doesn't happen. Devotees are just trying to fix the thing among themselves. If it doesn't work, they just separate. But there is no...
Okay, first, the winner of the race.
Super. So the point is that sometimes we hear the statement that it is their private business, it's not our thing. But in the Varnashrama society, there is some kind of social pressure, how to behave between the community. We don't have such the system in our society. What to do to install something with it is not too
You're
law.
kind of asking, you're saying about social pressure, but you're also asking about support and help.
Yeah.
So like in Chopati, which is a community that has more than 3,000 devotees, I think, in the congregation, more or less, maybe, I don't know, in your country, do that. Like when you're in Rome, do as the Romans. Right? But then what he did is said that for people in the West They can be married legally first. So at least we don't, somehow, I don't know why, but here in this part of the world, the Balkans, many people live together just as partners. But it's not a big deal to get married, it's not a big deal to get divorced. So why, at least they could be married as a civil. And this living as a partner, that was never approved as a Krishna conscious option. But somehow here, let's try it out as a partner for a few years and then get married. The Prabhupada's option was get legally married, so at least we show a moral face to the society. Try it out for 1 year or more. And then if you really feel convinced that you're going to stay together for your whole life, you like it, you love each other, you work, then get the fire yajna. But after fire yajna, it shouldn't be divorced. For any normal, unless the person goes out of Krishna consciousness or completes something totally intolerable. Not just because I don't love you anymore. This kind of, there's always ups and downs. So that's one side. But then, Chopati, they have different social support programs from the Grihastas. It's not from the temple as such. They have their own council of leading Grihasta devotees. They give money to maintain the temple. They have a marriage counselor service where marriages that are in trouble, they give them counseling if they want it. But maybe a Grihasta's private thing. Nobody goes up and says, listen, I'm going to counsel you. You have to ask for the counseling. You have to want it. But then if you're bringing someone else, and a counselor is someone who's someone who's trained in that. Like Kunteya, he's taking this training, counselor training. There are a lot of this it's available in ISKCON to get counselor training. I think Matsya Avatar has it. I'm not sure if he has it. Some that's around. And so you get some people to get the training. I took a 3-day crash course in counseling. I don't know, I probably forgot most of it, but 3 days is not a long time. But just to get an idea about counseling is a completely different thing than like you go to some spiritual guru or someone. The guru could take. It's good for me because I could say I could take 2 modes. I could take counselor mode, or I could take authority mode. Authority mode, you say, okay, do this, do that. Then it's like an order or something. Where counseling is where you want the people to find their own solution. And so then you do this, what they call proactive listening, empathic listening, and all this is like you hear the person, they say something, you ask them the question, you get the 2 couples to speak to each other, and it's an interesting, a different method, mediation, like a mediation. I didn't take the mediation, but this counts as something like a mediation, a little more personal. And so they have some devotees that actually want to do it. Not devotees just going to go right away and say, you should do this, you're in mine, That's not counseling. Maybe that's taking the role as a guru. Maybe that's not what they need at that time, that's not what they want. Someone has to be trained to be a counselor. There should be in the community. Here you don't have 3,000, maybe you have 300 devotees. I don't know how many. This last night there was like 250. You must have this is a weekday that everybody came. So you can have like some devotees who are available to be counselors. To help when people are having misunderstanding. We saw some in the training course, they showed how there's different techniques. One thing is they get them to express their problem, then they get them, okay, now you switch roles. You think that you're him and he thinks he's you. And then try to see things from the other point of view. And then now you defend his case and he defend yours. It's like suddenly like only thinking from their side. They never thought, what is the other person feeling when I throw his Bhagavad Gita out the window or something, I don't know. Nothing like that, whatever they do, their problem is. So there's all kinds of little techniques. So someone can go for a 1 week, 2 week training even, or crash course, 5-day training. At least they have a little bit of an idea. And if they get a bigger course, a bigger training, then they could actually help to be counselors for the devotee. Counselor, not in like the counselor system, but counselor in the sense of this type of problem resolution. Counselor. So that would be good. I mean, they also have marriage placement bureau. I have a marriage placement bureau, a number of them, almost in every country, in every area we have. We even help other gurus, disciples to get placed. If they want to go on the database, they can go. Doesn't always work, but try. At least we're trying. Just like that, my office, marriage bureau, interface with Chopati Marriage Bureau, and 2-3 of my disciples are married to a Radhanath Swami disciple. I'm an approved guru for my disciples to marry disciples. I got the certification. I didn't know there was a certification. Not every guru is approved. I'm sure you are, but... So that's one. What was your long question? There was another aspect to it. Did I answer everything?
Yeah. I have one question more. I'd like to, if you can tell us something about these counselor groups. You mentioned that in Chopati and in Pune, there in South India, they have Bhakti Vriksha groups for the newer devotees, new members, and these counselor groups for the older. I'm interested if you can tell us something about how these groups are functioning and who is actually training those who are leading these groups, because they have a problem to train the leaders. Who is doing the education and training for them?
The counselors. Now I think there are 50 counselor groups in Jayapataka. So it started out with 5 groups who were directly trained by Radhanath Swami. And then they had assistant counselors. And then gradually the assistant counselors, some of them became counselors, now they have like 50. So it's kind of a gradual progression. Basically what they do is they meet twice a month. And in between they have just little huddles during the Sunday feast and in the weekend between. But they don't have a full meeting, but they just get together, everyone's alright, how are you doing? Each individual gets to choose which counselor he wants. It's a voluntary thing, but if you don't choose one, you're in trouble. You're in trouble in the sense that you're not fully accepted as part of the community. So then, when they have the meeting together, they give a report. They have a written report about their japa, about their sadhana. So there's a sadhana report. Then they also have some class, a little class, and they read, and it's a little bit interactive. Not so much like Bhakti Vriksha, but a little bit interactive. But they don't have, Bhakti Vriksha has preaching, they don't have preaching. Bhakti Vriksha is much more interactive. But the Bhakti Vriksha facilitator is more of a facilitator. He doesn't take the role as a counselor. A little bit, but not to the extent that a counselor does. If he has an issue with a devotee in the Bhakti Vriksha group, he'll refer to a sector leader, who will refer to the circle leader, who will go up to the director, however many group levels they have. And those senior levels, like in Middle East in one country, Bangladesh, they have 125 Bhakti Vriksha groups. They have sector leaders for 3-4 groups, circle leaders for 8 to 12 groups, and they have Maha Chakrapatis, great circle, for 3 circles, 35 groups, 25 groups. And those Maha Chakrapatis are very mature devotees. They're equal, I would say, humbly, more or less equal like a counselor, or more maybe. Because they're dealing with 35 different groups and all the problems and problem solving. So if some issue comes up to them, usually they're pretty mature and they can deal. Whatever can be handled at a low level, they try to handle it. If things are more serious, it comes up. So this kind of spreads out the responsibilities and overload. Where the counselor groups, they have when they start getting really big, then he makes assistant counselors who then help him to counsel and oversee. I don't know if they go to see the people's homes and look in their refrigerator and how personal it gets. Some Bhakti Viksha groups do that. Maybe some counselor groups, they literally just check out the whole altar, everything. But how much actually each one does may be different. So that's it. They have a class and they have a report. He knows. He's the one that has to recommend for initiation. If they're already initiated anyway for Brahmin or whatever. There may be more. There's a book. We're trying to publish the book for them. It gives more details, but just in a nutshell, that's what I remember. Okay? So thank you all very much. Trying to support each other, help each other. Unity and diversity. Today was a pretty practical.
Very good. Necessary to discuss practical things.
You couldn't tell any Chaitanya Lila.
Another time.
That's what gives me a lot of energy. A little bit, I told them. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Fruits and nuts bag.
We can reach. Yes. Your fun.
To explain. Once somebody came up to me from Peru, how does it feel like to live in a small country?
Yeah, Peru is saying to you that is there any chance you can come in April or May? We'll be in touch.
I have a ticket from Frankfurt to Vienna back to so I have to use that. I have to buy a ticket to come to Europe and then maybe I have to get a Star Alliance like
Which time frame? July. So before July.
Also, I have a ticket to
Haribol, mizde, evo ga, krenemo. Mizde krenemo iz Zagreba. Ajde, Haribol.
They don't really share those inflatables.
Yes, they fly now. They do, yes.
Really?
We have now all big airlines.
Every day or?
Not every day. I think 2 times a week. British Airways. What? Finnair. No.
Olive?
Maldives. Maldives, Austrian Airlines.
Adria Airways going?
Adria Airways,
Yeah, this is a part
Croatia
of
Airways,
Lufthansa and United States.
Adria Airways, Slovenia,
I think they're both part of.
All Italia, Lufthansa.
What I'll probably do is come to Europe.
You can get visa in London that time. You can buy it to London just to get a visa and then fly to Boston.
Coming with us.
Marko.
I want to say bye.
I'm doing both. I'm yet fully developing a very nice concept for congregation preaching, and I want to put more energy into that again because I see it's a very important field, and I want to develop an outreach program where I systematize Prabhupada's teachings into what I call the Vedic way. It's like the complete art of transformation, the Vedic way. And it's like a spiritual, arranged like a spiritual university, but not that everyone has to live at one place to learn it, like in a university, but that you will have courses all over. Yeah. So I'm developing the materials because I feel that education of our devotees must be for life, so they must know all the things. There will be sattva, living in balance, there will be dharma, living with a purpose. Your purpose must be clear. Grihastha dharma, all the things devotees must know. Then atma, living in the self. Then paramatma, living in the higher connection in bhakti, living in love. So that will be our outreach program. That is the bhakti sadhana, yes. And it's our whole life is really described in there, only with maybe the special emphasis of physical, emotional, and social well-being as a basis for spiritual life. I mean, but obviously, spiritual life is the main emphasis and focus. So it's a huge project in which I want to. When I have developed more of it, and something is really there, I believe you would be very interested, and we can. I want to do that very much. So I'm developing it now. I'm going in one week to Matsya Avatar, see his realizations and inputs. And simultaneously, I'm developing a spiritual university in Berlin. Wow. I'm really active after this. I almost lost my life. Maybe devotees told you 1 year ago. I was really. It was a traumatic surgery, and after the surgery, I got inflammation all over the body. And really, I was already. After that, I just didn't get up for a whole year anymore because of the inflammation. I already saw the tunnel.
I just had my leg implanted, and that was.
Where is it?
Well, now it's. What?
If it's not good, maybe you don't show you.
And went down after 5 days. Well, 5 days of intravenous and then 10 days of oral 4 times a day. So I caught it. Otherwise, they said that was going to happen to me. It would go into my blood.
Like me.
Amputate the leg.
Exactly like this case.
But somehow
you were protected. So after that I decided to really look what is my emphasis. I feel I'm living now again and I want to do something wonderful for Prabhupada. It changed my life very much. I will have to go 2 more months to Russia, Krishna Priya, to get all the organs went dysfunctional. And then but then I will fly and do things, when eco projects we start. I am really...
Raja Vihari said sometime I was supposed to get together with you. Here goes.
If you wish, yes, it would be my great honor. And I told him you are much more advanced spirited than me. But if you wish, I would, you know, I'm your fan and I'm always at your service.
I'll be happy if they hear that.
If I can help you in that way, I will.
Maybe I get some good advice. I don't have so many people I talk to.
I guess we come from the same place, Bhakti Cheta Maharaj and myself, and also little Radha Maharaj. We are people of a mystical dimension. But anyways, you decide. But I want to tell you, I observed when you came to the temple a really increase in Krishna conscious energy. That was a wonderful evening yesterday. I don't know how it was for you because you must have been tired, but you somehow have a way to share the quality of your heart. That is what you do as a preacher. The quality of a devotee's heart. Was very nice. Yesterday and this morning also. Wonderful service. Wonderful service. I'm always telling this to the devotees. I am a fan of Jayapataka Maharaj because I understand how he feels as a preacher. Some devotees don't understand enough. Let me say like this, if a devotee is not himself a preacher, he will never be able to understand another preacher. It's just not possible that what drives a preacher is different than what drives a non-preacher. It's a different motor, it's a different engine. That is important to know.
Today somebody told me that their husband didn't come because he felt not worthy to come to the temple. So then I feel like, okay, it's like a challenge. Get it back into
You know, so how this morning you gave the answer to this question which is really there in the congregation. I voiced something which, you know yourself, they ask this, but they don't dare to put it really into the public forum, and I very much appreciated your compassionate and, let me say, answer which was in contact with the reality of the humanness of a struggling soul.
Once we were talking about in Mayapur, there was the plan that there's going to be like installed brahmacharis and the Prabhupada, we have to have grihastas. And then somebody said that often grihastas would be having sex. And Prabhupada said, of course, you have to think big! Think big, and he moved his hands like that.
Very nice answer.
Forgot about that one.
So Maharaj, you will hear from me. We will
You
always
have an
meet.
email? You use email? Or?
I am using email. Yes, Sachinandan Swami Kamhonet. I'm in Kamhonet, and you will hear from me when I want to work a little bit more and not just talk about plans, but structure it a little. And then, yes, and if you wish to get
Satya, Dharma,
Sattva, Dharma, Atma.
Sattva, Suddha Sattva.
From there to there. Yes, yeah.
Sattva, Dharma, Atma, Paramatma.
And last?
Bhakti.
Yes, yes, you are very intelligent. And it will be like a life school that will be arranged like this. How to go, and
So
then
when we graduate, we get a prema.
all right. So I wish you a good journey, Shubha Yatra. You go now to Ljubljana, I understand, and then somewhere in some esoteric country. What is it?
This is a dental ribbon floss.
Oh, yeah.
Came out between your teeth.
Okay.
Someone gave me an extra one.
Thank you very much. I know this simple dental floss is a carrier of affection. Because that is what is meant when one gives a present. Okay, very well, appreciate that. Hare Krishna.
But I don't have
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Just put the stamp when you enter Croatia.
Used to be they used to have a reality permit. Now they call it travel document.
It's more like a present.
It's like if you're a stateless national, they give you
ne znamo, što ne znamo našim komunikacije. Mi odmah čim neko nešto kaže,
Slike je so small. That's why I could come to... Five.
Bosnia looks only which passport do you have? Or do you have visa for...
Idemo se daš go.
They only look for passports.
You will find a base to come also.